Hey everyone, and welcome! Today we're diving deep into one of the most powerful and maybe misunderstood forces shaping our world: foreign direct investment, or FDI. It's the engine that really makes globalization run, moving trillions of dollars across borders. But where is all that money going, and what's it actually doing when it gets there? To really get a handle on FDI, all you have to do is look at the phone that's probably in your hand right now. The camera? That might have come from Japan. The processor from Taiwan, the memory from Korea, and chances are it was all put together in China. Now, this isn't just about buying and selling stuff. It's a huge, incredibly coordinated web of long-term investment that makes these amazing global products even possible. So what is FDI, really? Well, it's way more than just buying some shares in a foreign company. FDI is about putting down roots, establishing a real presence, and having some control. Think about a company like Toyota building a brand new factory in the United States. It's really the deepest kind of international integration there is, because you've got capital, technology, and management skills all crossing borders together. All right, let's really get into the nuts and bolts here. To understand FDI, you have to ask a pretty basic question. Why even do it? What makes a massive corporation decide to pour billions of dollars into another country instead of just, investing right here at home? Well, it pretty much boils down to four key things. First up, seeking resources. That's the obvious one, right? Think of oil companies setting up shop in the Middle East. Second, they're seeking markets, like Unilever wanting to sell shampoo directly to millions of people in Brazil. Third, and this is a huge one, is seeking efficiency. That's like Ford opening plants in Mexico to make cars more cheaply for the North American market. And finally, companies are seeking strategic assets, say a tech firm opening an office in Silicon Valley, not to sell anything, but just to be in the middle of all that innovation. Okay, so here's where things start to get really complicated. For the countries that are receiving all this money, the host countries, FDI is absolutely a double-edged sword. It gets people incredibly excited, but it can also spark some pretty fierce resistance. And that brings us to the big question we're tackling today. Is all this foreign money a blessing or a curse for the country that gets it? Does it actually build a nation up, or does it end up hollowing it out? And as you're about to see, the answer isn't so simple. It's kind of both. So, let's break this whole debate down. On one side, you have all these potential advantages, and they look incredibly good to any government. But on the other side, if you don't manage this stuff carefully, the disadvantages can be absolutely devastating. The argument for FDI is really compelling. First, a host country gets a huge injection of cash for investment. It gets new jobs for its people, and crucially, it gets access to new technology and modern ways of running a business. And here's the kicker. Something like 2/3 of all world trade happens inside these big multinational companies. So if you can land one of their projects, you get an instant ticket to the global export market. You can see why governments fight so hard for this stuff. But then you have the other side of the coin. And this image, with all these headlines about protests and accusations of terrible labor practices at Foxconn in China, well, it really highlights the serious risks involved. It's just a stark reminder of the very real human cost when that global push for efficiency clashes with people's well-being. And that leads us straight into the serious downsides. That constant hunt for lower costs can lead to abusive labor conditions or environmental shortcuts. These powerful multinational companies can just steamroll local businesses. A lot of the time, the profits don't stay in the host country, they're sent back home, which can really strain the local economy. And let's be honest, when times get tough, a foreign company might just pack up and leave much faster than a local one would. Sometimes the tax breaks a country gives away to attract a company in the first place end up costing way more than the investment brings in. So as you can see, it's this constant balancing act. On one side of the scale, you've got the good stuff: capital, jobs, technology. On the other, you have the risks: exploitation, economic drain, and a loss of local control. And host countries are always trying to tip those scales in their favor. So what does all the data tell us? Well, here's the crucial takeaway. History shows that FDI doesn't automatically create growth. The link is there, it's positive, but it's pretty weak. The real key is what's called smart integration. A country has to have strong rules and a clear strategy to get the most out of the benefits while protecting itself from the risks. But wait, the story doesn't actually end in the host country. The ripple effects from these massive decisions are felt thousands of miles away, and they're creating a totally different kind of tension back in the countries where these companies came from. In the last several years, we've seen this growing anti-globalization backlash in a lot of developed countries. And why is that? Well, because when a factory moves overseas, that often means people lose their jobs back home. There's a real frustration when you see companies making record profits, but the communities where they started are struggling. And people worry about losing their country's technological edge, or just turning a blind eye to bad environmental behavior happening somewhere else. And this isn't just some abstract idea. It has very real political consequences. This exact sentiment was a huge force behind major events like Brexit in the UK. And it was definitely tapped into by political leaders like Donald Trump in the US, who spoke directly to the economic fears of communities that felt left behind by globalization. Okay, so given all of this, all the potential rewards and all the serious risks, how in the world do companies actually decide where to place their bets? How do they navigate this giant global chessboard and pick one country over another for a billion-dollar investment? Turns out, it all comes down to a strategic analysis of three core things. You can think of this as the essential blueprint for any huge international investment decision. It's how they weigh the good, the bad, and the just plain practical. First up is attractiveness. This is all about the potential upside. How big is the market you could sell to? How good are the roads, the ports, the electricity? How skilled and productive are the workers? This is really all about the potential for profit and growth. Second is risk, and this is all about playing defense. How stable is the government? Is there any chance they could just seize your factory? Are they going to suddenly jack up taxes or block you from sending your profits home? Managing these kinds of dangers is absolutely critical. And number three is proximity. This one's about what you might call the hidden cost of being foreign. How different is the culture, the language, the legal system? You know, a US company is probably going to find it way easier to operate in the UK than in Vietnam, just because that cultural and legal gap is so much smaller. Closing that gap matters a lot. Let's make this real with an example from Intel. This chart just perfectly illustrates the trade-offs. The USA has amazing infrastructure and innovation, but its tax rate is on the higher side. China offers a gigantic market, but its labor efficiency score is a bit lower. But then, look at Ireland. High innovation, skilled workers, and a corporate tax rate of just 12.5%. That incredibly low tax rate, plus the fact that it's culturally pretty close to the US, makes it a no-brainer as a strategic hub for Intel's operations in Europe. So finally, let's zoom all the way out and look at the big picture. After decades of really explosive growth, where are all these global investment flows headed next? You can really break the history of modern FDI into three distinct periods. The 1990s were an absolute boom time. We're talking an incredible 21% average growth every year as places like Eastern Europe and China opened up. Then, growth stayed pretty strong right up until the 2008 financial crisis. But since then, the brakes have slammed on. Growth has slowed to a crawl, averaging just 1% a year. So where is the money actually going today? Well, this chart shows a massive shift. For the very first time, Asia, at 32%, has actually overtaken Europe as the world's #1 destination for foreign investment. North America comes in third. Now, what's really fascinating is where the money is coming from. While Europe is still the biggest source of FDI, look at this. Asia is now a very close second at 36%. This is a huge, huge change. It means Asia is no longer just a place where capital goes. It has become a major global investor in its own right. And all of this leaves us with one final, and I think really crucial question. We're clearly at a crossroads. The benefits of all this global integration are obvious, but so are the political and social backlashes. So as we move forward, what's it going to be? Will the world choose to build more bridges to encourage global investment, or will it start building more walls, retreating back into nationalism and protectionism? The answer to that is going to define the global economy for decades to come.